Peter Zatko, the former CISO of Twitter and now whistleblower, testified to Congress about Twitter's serious security flaws. Peter Zatko, better known by his handle Mudge, didn't pull any punches when testifying to Congress about Twitter security and privacy standards that are a decade behind industry standards, terribly insufficient, and not meeting requirements set forth by a settlement with the FTC in 2011. That's when the FTC published some findings that Twitter failed to safeguard customer personal information. Twitter was required to address these shortcomings, but according to Mudge, the new CEO intentionally has misled the public, who incidentally refuses to testify at the Senate committee here. Mudge outlined systemic problems stemming from the C-suite, which created a financial reward system for employees where security was not prioritized and often ignored, basically putting profits over security and privacy. He outright accused executives of misleading the government, users, and shareholders regarding their security practices. And this is a really big deal. He calls out that foreign governments had agents within the company to harvest data, and security was so lax that a large number of employees could take over the accounts of every member of Congress, or anybody they wish to do harm. Twitter hacks have been the foundation for millions in fraud, created fear from disinformation, used as a beachhead for social engineering attacks, also used to identify dissidents by oppressive governments, and even caused a flash crash in the stock market. Mudge is one of the most recognizable people in cybersecurity, with a solid reputation. He's been around forever. He's been a hacker. He worked for DARPA for a period of time. And he's been a cybersecurity executive, obviously CISO or former CISO of Twitter. And after the 2011 FTC findings, Mudge was brought into Twitter by then Dorsey, the CEO, to run their cybersecurity initiative and turn the company around to elevate the security practices. He was recently fired by the new Twitter CEO and has become a whistleblower to uncover very specific allegations of intentional wrongdoing by the highest executives. This whistleblower testimony with specific facts or allegations from somebody who had clear visibility and accountability is damning to Twitter. It will play a role in the Elon Musk efforts to withdraw from purchasing Twitter. It has now gained the attention of Congress and the FTC, which will likely fine or sanction the company if they determine the company purposefully misled people, shareholders, regulators, and so forth. Shareholders are filing a suit claiming that they've been deceived about the company's security practices. And I would expect customers also to jump on the bandwagon and file similar suits. It's not looking good for the new CEO of Twitter either. Even if half of what Mudge claims is true, he's got some big problems and may not be around for very long. Overall, the testimony brings up several great strategic points that I think we all need to understand. Right. First off, leadership is key to cybersecurity. And without executive support of that leadership, right, security initiatives will absolutely fail. They cannot take root. They cannot be sustained. They will not be pushed. They will not be embraced by the employees. So that's number one. Number two is the fact, and this goes into a lot of the documents that he's written about, as part of this whistleblower, that security and privacy are intimately tied together, and they must work in lockstep to be successful. And these efforts must go across both product development and the internal operations. But when you have a situation where security and privacy aren't talking, they're distant, maybe they're not even reporting into the same people or into one another, you simply don't have what it takes to protect sensitive data. So security and privacy have to work together, otherwise assured failure. The third is companies of all sizes may be acting unethically in how they protect sensitive customer data. We would kind of expect this in a small company that maybe didn't have the funds to hire a CISO or a security team or do a privacy assessment review or anything like that. But even the largest of companies, Twitter being, among them, which had the resources, that had the skill sets, that brought in people, the executive management, if they're acting unethically, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change. Bad security practices will continue to be pervasive. And if profits are always prioritized over security and privacy, then there will be no effective cybersecurity program. One simply cannot exist. Now, looking forward, Twitter has some tough choices ahead. They can try and deny everything and label Mudge as a disgruntled ex-employee. But the reality is all of these allegations, because they are so specific and they've been going on for so long, they will be easy to verify by investigators. And systemic problems like that, they just can't be hidden over time. And even if a small portion of what has been alleged is true, then Twitter will be compelled, either by shareholders or by the board or by Congress or the FTC or some regulation, to make meaningful changes. Real changes, verifiable changes. And the words spoken back in 2011 and those theater that was conducted won't do. And I think this is going to require that Twitter hire somebody and fully empower an expert in both cybersecurity and privacy, and one that has a strong history of ethical processes and practices in the digital world. And that person would need to report directly to the board, bypassing the CEO. And in reality, again, if this is true, what's being claimed, the CEO may need to be replaced as well. If he's found to be culpable of misleading the board and the investors, it's time for him to go. Ultimately, trust must be restored. And it has to be restored with a leader that can affect serious change in the company and then show it, prove it, communicate it. Let the customers, the shareholders, and even the regulators see that real change has taken root. Now, this is not the end of the story, but rather a continuation for Twitter, because this dates back to the problems identified in 2011. Something must give, as more investigations, lawsuits, and government inquiries are coming. The little blue bird is in some really hot water right now. Thanks for watching. If you would like to hear more, you can follow me on LinkedIn or on the Cybersecurity Insights podcast channel on YouTube. The link will be below.